Okay, let's talk about knees. Think about just, walking upstairs or getting out of a chair. If those simple things bring on stiffness, maybe aches, or that grinding feeling, your knees might be trying to tell you something serious.
Yeah, it's really common, unfortunately.
Hmm.
And it's not just a minor thing, is it?
No, but
Okay.
it can really stop you from doing things you enjoy. It limits your mobility, and honestly, it just brings down your quality of life.
Right. And the go-to explanation is often just, oh, it's wear and tear, or maybe genetics, or an old football injury.
Exactly. And then you find yourself relying on pain pills or PT, just sort of managing something you feel is inevitable.
Hmm.
But here's the question we're digging into today based on the material you brought. What if that pain and the actual degeneration in the joint is really affected by something you can control?
You mean like what you're eating?
Precisely. What if certain common foods are actively fueling inflammation and, well, damaging your knee tissues? So, our mission in this deep dive is to explore that claim that by strategically removing specific everyday foods, you could directly help cut down inflammation, maybe slow tissue breakdown, and really protect your knee health after 50. We're focusing on 4 food types highlighted in this info.
And that's such an important point because, yes, the mechanics, the decades of use, they definitely play a part, no question. But what this research underscores is that chronic inflammation and the actual breakdown of cartilage, those are major drivers of the knee pain and osteoarthritis we see so often with age.
So, it's not just in your head that it feels worse as you get older.
Not at all. Inflammation is absolutely key both for the pain you feel day to day and for how fast things, well, degenerate.
Okay.
And what this material really brings out is how the role of specific foods that promote inflammation is often kind of overlooked. Eating these things consistently isn't like one bad meal making you sick. It's more subtle, like feeding a slow burn inflammatory fire inside your joints over years.
A fire that damages cartilage and makes pain worse.
Exactly. It speeds up the damage and makes your pain receptors more sensitive. And that gets missed if you're only looking at, say, knee alignment or using temporary pain relief.
So maybe you, listening right now, have felt your knees ache more after certain meals, or just wondered, could my diet be part of this?
Well, this material suggests that feeling points directly to real biochemical stuff happening, interactions between your food and the inflammation in your knees.
Doctors talk about inflammation, sure, but maybe not always about these specific foods being such triggers.
That's often the case. The targeted impact isn't always highlighted, and that's where this information gets really interesting because it suggests a way to take some control back.
Right, it challenges that whole idea that knee problems after 50 are just something you have to live with.
Exactly. It presents what it calls an uplifting discovery, this idea that there's actually immense hope for protecting your knees, maybe even slowing down the damage, just by strategically stopping certain foods.
And this isn't just guesswork. The material points to research challenging the old idea that diet doesn't matter much here. It mentions studies showing that avoiding these pro-inflammatory foods can actually lower inflammatory markers in the body.
Yes, and potentially slow down that cartilage breakdown,
Mm.
which could mean less pain and stiffness for you.
So while getting older and mechanical stress are factors,
The severity of your pain and the rate of degeneration could be dramatically influenced by fairly straightforward diet changes. Specifically, cutting out foods that are, according to this research, actively harming your joints.
which brings us to the core idea. Just stopping, or at least seriously cutting back on, 4 types of common foods could potentially mean less inflammation, better tissue protection, less pain, more comfort, and maybe even slowing the whole process down after 50.
It's presented as a really impactful strategy, hitting the problem at one of its sources.
Okay, let's get into them. The 4 categories the source says you should stop eating because they're basically destroying your knees after 50. What's number 1?
Okay, first up, added sugars and refined carbohydrates.
Ah, the usual suspects. So, sugary drinks, candy, pastries, desserts, but also things like white bread, white pasta, white rice, lots of snack foods.
Precisely. And the why here, according to the material, is twofold. First, they cause rapid spikes in blood sugar and insulin. And when that happens chronically, over and over, it promotes systemic inflammation everywhere in the body, including your knee joints.
Inflammation, got it. But you said twofold.
Right. The second part is maybe even more direct damage. High intake of sugar and refined carbs leads to more formation of something called advanced glycation end products, AGGs for short.
AGGs, what do they do?
Well, the source says these AGEs build up in your joint tissues, particularly cartilage, and they make the cartilage stiffer, less flexible, and more prone to damage. so they actively contribute to the breakdown.
Wow. Stiffer cartilage sounds bad for a joint.
Definitely. Plus, these foods are typically empty calories in terms of joint health. They lack the vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants your joints actually need to stay healthy.
So the reason to stop eating them, according to the source.
It's pretty clear. They directly fuel inflammation,
Yeah.
they promote these tissue-damaging AGEs, and they offer zero beneficial nutrients for your joints. Cutting them out reduces that systemic inflammation and the direct stress on the joint tissues.
Makes sense. Okay, what's the second food category we need to watch out for?
Category 2 involves certain fats, excess omega-6 vegetable oils, and trans fats.
Fats get confusing. What's the specific problem with these ones according to the material?
So the issue isn't omega-6 fats themselves, we need some. The problem is the balance. The typical modern diet is overloaded with omega-6s, mostly from oils like soybean, corn, sunflower oil, things used heavily in processed food.
They're everywhere.
Exactly. And we get way too many of those compared to the anti-inflammatory omega-3s, like from fish oil. This huge imbalance actively promotes a pro-inflammatory state throughout the body.
Which then makes joint pain and damage worse.
Yes, it exacerbates pain and contributes to cartilage breakdown. Then you have artificial trans fats found in things like some margarines, shortening, lots of fried foods, commercially baked goods. The source highlights these as particularly bad news. They significantly ramp up systemic inflammation and are also terrible for heart health, which indirectly can affect joint health too through circulation.
Okay, so avoid those processed oils and definitely trans fats. The reason to stop the M is...
According to the source, they push your body towards an unhealthy inflammatory state and directly fuel the processes that damage joints. Cutting out trans fats is just crucial for overall health, and joint protection is a big part of that.
Got it. Category number 3. This one sounds broad. Processed and fried foods.
It is broad, but the source defines it pretty clearly. Think fast food, packaged snacks like chips and crackers, processed meat, sausage, bacon, hot dogs, and obviously deep-fried anything.
Okay, and why are these lumped together?
Because, as the source points out, they're often a combination of the bad stuff we've already talked about.
Like a perfect storm for your needs.
Kind of, yeah. They often contain refined carbs, added sugars, unhealthy fats, usually high in those omega-6s, sometimes still containing trans fats, and they're often loaded with sodium.
Sodium, too. How does that fit in?
Well, the high sodium can cause fluid retention, which might increase pressure and discomfort in joints that are already feeling stressed. But the main hit is that combination, the source calls it a powerful pro-inflammatory cocktail. Eating these foods regularly means constantly bombarding your system, including your knees, accelerating that wear and tear, and making you more sensitive to pain.
So the reason to stop to pee these is pretty straightforward then.
Absolutely. The source frames it as these are concentrated sources of multiple pro-inflammatory ingredients. They actively damage joint tissues and amplify pain signals. Cutting them out is a direct, high-impact way to lower the inflammatory burden on your knees.
Okay, one category left. Number 4, sugary drinks. Seems obvious, but what's the specific focus here from the material?
The material calls these liquid sugar. Think sodas, sweetened fruit juices, energy drinks, sweetened teas, and coffees.
Why liquid sugar?
Because they deliver a massive dose of sugar very, very quickly into your system. There's no fiber or anything to slow it down. This causes huge blood sugar spikes, which, as we discussed, directly contribute to systemic inflammation.
More inflammation.
Exactly. The source explicitly links regular consumption of these drinks to increased markers of inflammation in the body and a higher risk for conditions that are worsened by inflammation, potentially, including joint problems. And critically, they provide absolutely zero beneficial nutrients for your joints. Nothing. No vitamins, minerals, protein, nothing helpful.
So the reason to stop is?
They are perhaps the fastest way to flood your body with inflammation-promoting sugar. And they offer absolutely nothing good for your joint health or overall well-being in return. Just empty inflammatory calories.
Wow. Okay, so let's recap the core message here from this material. By actively stopping, or at least significantly cutting back on these 4 groups, added sugars, refined carbs, excess omega-6 oils, trans fats, processed fried foods, and sugary drinks, the claim is you can dramatically reduce that inflammatory load.
Yes, and protect your knee joints from this diet-fueled damage.
And it's not about starving yourself, right?
No, absolutely not. The source clarifies this isn't about deprivation. It's about making space, swapping these out for foods that do support joint health. It briefly mentions focusing on nutrient-dense anti-inflammatory options. Lots of colorful veggies, fruits, lean proteins, healthy fats like olive oil, and those omega-3s from fish, whole grains,
Right.
things that actively help your joints.
So the big takeaway here is that your knee comfort, your ability to move easily, your long-term knee health after 55, it's really profoundly influenced by the foods you choose to avoid starting today.
hmm The insight is that just managing pain with pills or focusing only on exercise, while helpful, might not be enough if your diet is constantly contributing to the underlying joint destruction.
Right.
And what we really took from the material is this sense of hope. Consistently avoiding these specific foods could genuinely slow down the degeneration and improve your comfort day to day. That's a powerful idea compared to just, hoping things don't get worse.
It's positioned as a foundational strategy.
Yes, one that works with other healthy habits, eating more anti-inflammatory foods, keeping a healthy weight, getting the right kind of physical activity. The source suggests your knee health and comfort really can improve over time if you're consistent with this.
It really feels like empowering information. The idea that just removing these everyday, easily accessible foods could potentially reduce inflammation so much, slow down damage, make you feel better, move better for years, maybe decades.
Yeah, there's a line in there that really stands out. You literally hold the power through choosing which foods you don't eat to protect your knee health and quality of life after 50.
It reframes it completely.
Yeah.
Not inevitable decline, but something you have significant dietary control over.
Exactly. Starting with what you choose not to put on your plate.
So thinking about these four food groups, the source says really contribute to knee problems after 50, those added sugars and refined carbs, the excess omega-3 oils and trans fats, processed and fried foods, and those sugary drinks. Here's something for you to chew on, so to speak, as you go about your day. Based on everything we've unpacked from this material, which one of those four food categories will you focus on cutting back on first, starting now, to help protect your knees?
It's a good question to ask yourself.
We really hope this deep dive into the source material has given you some valuable things to think about, maybe some actionable steps for taking control of your knee health. Maybe you share this with someone you care about, someone over 50 who talks about knee pain or is just worried about it. This kind of insight, as the source suggests, could potentially make a real difference for them.